All right, well, this is the Frontier DH8 wood chipper. I am going to do a full assembly process on it, and this is my first time putting it together, so if I make a mistake and have to back up, then I will definitely make sure that's part of the video, but this will be a step-by-step following their instructions. So the DH8 comes on a metal pallet, surrounded in cardboard, packed in pretty good, seems to travel pretty well, and all the other components, this is how it comes off of the skid. The other components, the chute, or the input chute, the ejection chute, the shaft, the receiver ball, coupler ball, and then the hardware, safety bar, those type of things are all wired to it. So I've got all that separated and ready to just dive into the instruction manual and start. I think we start by putting the input chute together. So we'll start with a hopper, and we're going to install the top and the two sides first using our short carriage bolts, our fender washers, and our nylon nuts, and we're going to leave the bottom off for right now. So for the left and right side, the best way to identify what's the outside and what's the inside, of course, is the stickers. The stickers are on the outside, the warning stickers. And we're going to put this together with the smallest part of the chute facing me. So that'll be the back that goes into the machine. The material, would imagine the material is going to be feeding this way when we put it together. So we're just going to lift up our side, which is technically the left side when you're looking at the chute, the input side of the chute. And we're just going to get, starting with our fender washers, starting with our carriage bolts, fender washer, and a nylon lock nut. It's recommended to put those together loosely since there's a lot of play. And we're only going to put the top two, or the first two, from the back toward the front of the hopper. And now we're going to install the bottom, same way. It just nests into the sides here. And on the bottom, we're going to go ahead and put the fourth one in, the one closest to the opening, because the safety bar only attaches to the top. Now, since everything's just finger tight, we're going to sit it down here on, good night, that thing is heavy. I'm going to sit it down here on some flat concrete so she can kind of take the shape we want her to, and then tighten it all up. So I'm going to tighten everything down with a 17mm ratchet. That should really dog those carriage bolt heads into the side of the chute material. Okay, so these metal hooks with the eyelets, they pivot once they're mounted to here. That's what allows you to be able to raise the hood up to clear any jams. So the goal is to pick that up, put it on there, and slide the bolts through. I think I'm going to have to recruit some help on that one. Have the old hand out of the way first. Okay. Now, put these on? Yeah. Washer goes too. Washer first. That's good. And then, very good. Thank you, my sweets. Yeah. So that's much safer and easier to do with some assistance. So I strongly recommend that. This thing is pretty stout. So got those in. So obviously going to dog those down so we can have a nice tight fit. All right, so the next step is to install the safety curtain through the top of the chute. And it's got these little slots cut into it so you can feed the heavy plastic material through. These take hex head or Allen keyed bolts and washers and nylon lock nuts. All right, so next we want to put the discharge chute into place. And there is a spring clamp here that allows you to rotate it. So we want to make sure put that near the operator side. It should kind of nest down in there. Since I'm a left-handed person living in a right-handed world, see if that makes things line up a little better. And to mount that chute, we're going to use a threaded bolt, split washer, and a fender washer. Because the housing here, this housing here is pre-threaded. So we don't have to reach through with a nut or anything like that, which is good. So I just discovered a mistake that I've made, and you guys probably saw the blinking text when I was first doing this, so hopefully it stopped you from making the same mistake if you've made it this far. I've always been the kind of guy who carries bolts on the outside so you don't get snagged when you're walking around a piece of equipment, but obviously putting stuff in the chute, smooth sided carriage bolt on the inside. Makes more sense. When you look down that chute, there's opportunities for things to get jammed into those nuts and foul those threads and stuff. So I'm going to turn every single one of those the opposite direction. For mounting the safety handle, there's a conglomeration of longer carriage bolts with split washer, nylon washers, some other fender bolts or some other fender washers, and the nylon nuts. And the instructions are pretty silent. They don't really address at all how to put this together other than just a real loose, put it in there and make sure it pivots. So the configuration, I'm pretty certain is the right one, is this configuration. So the longer carriage bolt through the inside, out, fender washer, split washer, and then just a regular nut. Now I know sometimes people like to swap split washer on the inside and outside, but I don't think that matters. Then a nylon washer, nylon bushing. Then the arm, the actual metal part of the safety bar, another nylon, another fender washer, and then the nylon lock nut. So that gives me, even dog down, that gives me play here. And nylon on nylon against paint, or a nylon against paint on both sides, of course, keeps the powder coat from getting chewed off of there when you're operating it. So for the safety bar to function, of course, it's got to be connected to the hydraulic cutoff here, which is what this big push rod is. Got these fancy little clip pins on it. So we're going to stick it through the eyelet of the safety push bar here first. Lock that in place, and then do the same on this end. The last two pieces to add, which I think are quite nice accessories that came with it is the chainsaw scabbard and the 2-inch drawbar to be able to pull the trailer behind. And yes, that says 50 millimeter, which I believe is 1.97 inches. So that's what we need. So the mounting location for the chainsaw scabbard is this piece of plate that they've welded on. It's kind of tough to see with black on black, but it allows the scabbard to mount there. And of course, we can mount it that way. Honestly, I'm not quite sure which way I want to mount it. Actually, I'm going to mount it on the outside because I'm just looking at, if I go inside with it, that does interfere somewhat with the reservoir cap for the hydraulic fluid. So I think we'll stay on the outside. And the last assembly step we'll do is put the drawbar on. I think we're going to come up from the bottom. There we go. I'll just tighten those down. We'll be good to go. So the next step is to determine whether or not the PTO shaft that was supplied with the attachment is too long to fit this setup. So we're going to measure on the spindle of the chipper where the bolt lies in. That's where the locking pin lies in, and that's where the little half circle depression is. So from that to the same on the tractor is 29.5. So we'll go measure the equivalent on the shaft itself. These rings here, these snap rings, are basically where the pin resides. So we want to measure from the dead center of those. And yeah, so this is 38.5. So my shaft, and you got to make sure the shaft is completely pushed in. So it's shortened as far as it'll go, and that comes to 38.5. So I'm 9 inches too long. So we're going to have to alter the shaft. We're going to have to cut it down. So that difference, that 9 inches, is what we want to remove. There's actually a little equation inside the instruction manual that tells you this equation. So the amount you want to cut off each shaft, not just one, but both, is the distance between the implement in the tractor and the maximum length of the shaft, and the minimum length of the shaft, which we know is 9 inches, is that difference. So that difference plus 1 inch is what we're going to cut. So that would be 8 inches. So I'm going to take 8 inches off of this shaft and 8 inches off of that shaft. We're going to cut the plastic first so we can expose the metal and then be able to make a cleaner cut. So the instructions don't say to, but I like to cut the plastic guard back a little bit more. That helps with marrying the two shafts together. We're looking for any burrs. We're looking for burrs on the inside of the black shaft because that's where the smallest shaft inserts into. You may have to get a file to knock any of those down if there are any. Same with the outside of the smaller shaft. So we'll do a test fit here. Here we go. So that gives us an overall length of 29.5. which is exactly our distance. Before we put it on the tractor, however, we are going to add some grease. We want to grease the actual shafts again, so we're going to pull them apart. And we want to apply grease to the outside of the inner shaft. And we're going to go ahead and do our Zerk fittings here on the override clutch. Don't be afraid of the grease. That's what my dad always said. Now there is an orientation to this. It's marked on the PTO shaft. But the override clutch or the shear bolt setting, whichever type of shaft you get, that goes back towards the implement. This goes towards the tractor, and it's denoted there on the drawing. Now, if your tractor setup is like mine, where you've got some extra PTO shrouds and things, you may have to take more than that recommended length off. I had to take another 3 inches to get it so I could get around these protective shrouds here. So the hydraulic reservoir claims to be a 7.5 gallon, and we're going to, it says instructions say to put at least 6 gallons in it. But we want to leave a 1 inch of head space at the top. So I'm using my poor man's funnel here. We've got about 1 inch of head space there, and we're going to put our cap on. And that's why I had the note when we were first showing the chainsaw scabbard, my note about possibly wait to do that after you fill up the reservoir, because it depends on the size funnel you have. If you've got a real long funnel, no big deal. It's kind of tight. You can't get the head of the bucket in here. If you had smaller bottles of hydraulic fluid, then possibly, but having that scabbard off made a big difference. And special thanks to my son for helping me in getting drowned in hydraulic fluid. So the next step is to purge all the air out of the hydraulics. And what we're going to do that is we're going to make sure our hydraulic control valve, the speed control, is on its highest setting, 10, and that's at the 6 o'clock position. Lowest settings at the 3 o'clock position. So we've got it there. And then we're going to make sure we are in neutral with the safety bar. So there's 3 positions. So all the way back is forward, halfway forward is neutral, and then all the way forward is reverse. So we want to be in neutral. And just for safety purposes, before we mess everything up, make sure there's a cutting wheel locking pin right here. Make sure that is disengaged, because the last thing you want to do is get this PTO going and this lock pin be in the way. So we should have freely turned. I've turned the shaft so I know that before I hooked up the PTO that the flywheel is free to spin. So we're going to start the tractor and run it at idle speed. And we're going to turn the PTO on at idle speed. Up to 540 RPMs. About 2 minutes, we're going to put it in gear, put it in forward. We're going to run that for about 2 minutes. And after 2 minutes, we'll switch it to reverse. for 2 more minutes. Disengage the PTO. And we're going to check our fluid levels. Obviously we pulled a lot of fluid into the lines. Make sure we're not too low. Yeah, not bad. Top it off if need to. All right, I think we're ready to make some wood chips. Well, I'm really anxious to put this thing through its paces. It's shown that it works the way it's supposed to, works well, making quick chips of everything I threw at it so far. So between the branches and the slab pile and everything we've got here on the farm, I think this will really come in handy. So if you have this wood chipper, I just pray that you read the instruction manuals, make sure you just go through everything, use safety, use caution, and then this machine will serve you great. Well, thanks so much for watching. Pray you all have a great week. Take care.